live and also for purposes of transparency. All of your microphones will be muted when you're not speaking, and we're going to be monitoring that. So we're trying not to have too many interruptions as we go forward. And we're asking all committee members, as I mentioned, because it is the policy of CB2 to have your cameras on during the meeting. And we encourage all the other attendees to leave their cameras on, particularly if you're given to the floor to speak. I think that it really enhances your ability to make your point if people can see you at the time you're speaking. So I will let you know when topics are open for comment by committee members, board members, and the general public. As you know, we're doing this through Webex. So if you want to speak, use the Webex feature in the participants panel to digitally raise and lower your hand, and we will call on you in order. If you have questions that don't get heard during our public comment time, you're welcome to type them in the chat panel, and we will get to them if we can, and as they pertain to what we're talking about. So if anyone experiences any technical difficulties as we proceed, you're encouraged to consult help.webex.com. And after the meeting, you can always reach out to the district office. So also an important notice is that we want to provide access for all our neighbors, regardless of their physical ability or any limitations. So if you require any accommodation or assistance, or you know of anyone who needs those things for full participation, please contact the district office at least 72 hours before any public meeting takes place. So we're going to go around and start the meeting by having the committee members introduce themselves. If I failed to mention it, I'm Barbara Zoller-Gringer, one of the co-chairs of the committee. Andrew Lasaweski is the other co-chair, and I don't see him, but hopefully he'll be joining us in a moment or two. Suzanne, would you like to be next? Oh, Suzanne, you're muted. You can unmute yourself. Just move your mouse and you'll get the choices.
Yep. Hi, everyone.
Give us your name. I know it's there, but.
Hi, everyone. I'm Suzanne Quint, and I'm a member of the committee, as well as a member of the community board.
Jennifer?
I'm Jennifer Melby, and I'm a member of the committee.
Quinn?
Carruthers, a member of the committee.
White?
Member of the committee and member of the board.
I was hoping everyone would introduce their whole names. I was just, so that we weren't all talking at once. I was.
Smith, member of the board and member.
Thanks. Carolyn? You have to unmute.
I'm Carolyn Kamen-Weary. I'm a member of the committee and of the board.
And Candace?
Hi, my name is Candace Harrison, and I'm a member of the committee and a resident of Clinton Hill.
All right, I don't see Lenny. Is Lenny on the call?
I am here, but my camera is not working. Do you hear me?
Oh, I see your letter. Yes. So you want to introduce yourself?
All right, I'm Lenny Levington. I'm a member of the board of the committee.
Okay. All right, well, thanks. Have we heard from Andrew?
I have not.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on then. Normally at this point in time, after we've introduced ourselves, or right before that, I like to go around myself personally and shake hands with everybody who's here and welcome everyone. We are very fortunate. I can't do that in person tonight, but we're very fortunate that we have a really good large crowd interested in what's going on tonight. So I think if anybody has the opportunity to speak, hopefully you will introduce yourself at that point in time. So I want to take this moment for those, both the committee members who haven't had this chance yet and everyone else on the call, to welcome our new liaison, who we are very fortunate when it comes to tech. Not only is she interested in parks, not only is she great, but she is very highly skilled when it comes to technology. So Taya Mueller is our new liaison, working with the Parks Committee. Carol Ann Church has done a phenomenal job all these years, and I have I'm totally confident that Taya will follow suit. So thank you for being here tonight, Taya. We really appreciate it. We're going to be talking tonight both about Commodore Barry Park and perhaps capital projects in general about the parks, and also work on our annual update of capital projects. So if anybody who is not a committee member has something that they want to say about those things briefly at this point in time, in a moment, I will give you the opportunity to do so. As soon as we approve the agenda, I just have one change to the agenda. It talks about Landmarks Preservation Commission. That is not for tonight's meeting. Instead, we're going to have an update on the Parks Department capital projects. So with that, I think I can amend that on my own, Rob. And then ask for approval of the agenda based on that change. With that change, I should say. Do
Approved.
I have a Quinn is first. Do I have a second?
Dwight Smith.
Thank you, Dwight. All right, so with that, if anyone now wants to talk about the two subject matters I mentioned, this is a time for you to briefly talk about those. All right. Hearing no one at the moment, you may have comments later. We're going to move on with the agenda. I'm always delighted to have people from the Parks Department here. I think we work closely with them, and I think they listen to us. So we're very fortunate to have the Chief of Staff for Brooklyn, Davey Ives, and I think he's brought some of his colleagues with him, and he will introduce them. And so Davey, I think, is going to be, I know the topic is capital projects in general, but I think your focus is going to be on Commodore Barry Park, which is something that's very dear to everybody's heart on this committee, and put a lot of focus on it, and as well as the other parks. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Davey. And thank you again for being here.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you everyone at Community Board 2 for hosting us tonight. Denise Palmer, the regional manager for West Brooklyn, so covering Community Board 2, couldn't join us tonight, but she sends her regards, as does Andrea Keys. I don't believe Andrea is on the phone at the moment now. But with me is Chris Yandoli from my staff. Chris handles capital projects for the borough. So he's kind of, he's helpful in our office to, you've seen him at scope meetings and behind the scenes, he's the one that's organizing a lot of the kickoff meetings for construction, supervising a lot of construction work that happens in the borough. So just wanted to introduce him. Barbara, I don't know if you would want me to give an update maybe on some of the virus related things in parks. I know that we mentioned that earlier. I could start with that. And then what I was planning on doing is we have we have our capital project. We have our update on capital projects that I could go through. I could run through that, and then we could discuss potential sites that are on kind of our needs list. I think last oh man, it feels like so long ago, but probably last summer, we did a van tour with you guys.
Yes.
And we rode around the district and looked at different sites. So I can tell you which ones are still on our list and which ones,
Right.
have been, and then the capital update will tell you which ones have been funded and where those are.
I didn't know if you, I didn't think to ask beforehand, but Taya may have, whether you have a PowerPoint or you're going to share a screen tonight at all?
I don't know how, I have a PowerPoint for the capital update, the status one. I don't have one for the needs at the moment. But I could, Taya, if it's possible, I could share my screen. But so if you just coach me through that when we get to that.
No problem. You have presenter status right now, so you just want to go up to the top left text menu and click on share, and then you can share content.
I got it. Share my meeting window.
You could do either. If it's a PDF or a slide deck, I would recommend share content.
Got it. Well, okay, so I can figure that out. But I just want to maybe go through the COVID-19 response first. I don't have a presentation for that.
Right.
So yeah, so COVID-19, right? I think the formal shutdown started sometime in mid-March, and maybe before I start, can everyone hear me okay? So just if you can give me a thumbs up. If you have any issues, just let me know. Put it in the chat or otherwise. So COVID-19 happened about mid-March. We had the shutdown take place, and so the Parks Department. This is new for us, as it is for everybody else. So we kind of scrambled and put together and put systems in place the best we could. And kind of our whole approach to this was being flexible, being responsive. Things are changing on the ground every day. And so we just want to figure out, how do we maintain, how can we do everything to protect the safety of you as park users and the safety of our staff as, members of the community that also service parks and help maintain them. So with that in mind, we are staying flexible as we can. So, initially when people needed to stay home because of childcare issues, we worked through systems with that. Kind of incredibly, we went from no preparations for work from home arrangements to suddenly a large portion of, especially our administrative staff, working from home in order to reduce people kind of being on top of each other in the office, which was a big feat for some of our IT work. But now, we're still working remotely. I've been in the office every day, as have our field staff. So they are essential workers. I think, I don't know if in Community Board 2 you hear people clapping at 7 o'clock every night. But parks workers are also in that. So these are people putting themselves out there. They're taking the train to work, and we haven't stopped coming into work since March. So we are trying to be cognizant of that as much as possible, and like I said, trying to be flexible for our workers. That said, the important stuff for you guys as the Parks Committee is kind of how does that shake out in parks. So obviously, again, safety is our top priority. So things like face coverings, things like social distancing, those are paramount for us to keep parks open and to keep parks functioning. So, we've handed out face coverings. I forget the statistics exactly, but I think we've handed out a bunch of face coverings. I'll also say that some of our rec centers have kind of adapted and turned into food distribution hubs across the city. So we've given out millions of meals at this point. Our recreation staff have been incredible. They have kind of responded to every task possible. They've gone from basketball coaches and and fitness instructors to now distributing food for New Yorkers. So it's been an incredible endeavor in that respect. We've also launched this program called the Parks Ambassadors. So you might see some people walking around in green jackets in your parks. Those folks are recreation staff mostly that are patrolling the parks, handing out masks and trying to educate people about social distancing and having people keep their distance. So I think that's kind of the some of the better things that have come out of this. Unfortunately, I think in the interest of safety, we've had to close a lot of parks amenities. And I shared in the chat the link to the parks webpage. This has a more detailed list of all the amenities that are closed. If you need that link, I can send it again. Just let me know, and maybe Taya, we can distribute it. So from the event perspective, all special events have been canceled through the end of this month. That will probably get revisited as we evaluate whether we move into phase 2 or not of the recovery. At this time, I don't think we're taking any applications for special events. Sports leagues, similar things. Sports leagues have been canceled through the end of the summer season, so the end of August. News on that front, actually, I think just this week, applications for the fall season have opened up. So if you, say, run a football league in Commodore Barry Park, you might want to think about putting your application in. Hey, Lloyd. So at the moment, we don't know whether the fall season is going to go forward. Obviously, this thing is changing every day, but what I can recommend is if you're thinking about it, get your permit in. And if you have any question, Nancy and her staff are amazing in the permits office. So Nancy, Jose, Joe, Darnell, all those guys can help you out. So feel free to give them a call. Nancy's in the office most days. If you don't get them, send them an email. If you still have trouble, speak to me through Taya or Rob, and we can work something out. So we're hopeful that we can get back to work in the fall in terms of sports, but obviously it depends on how things go with this virus. And like I started this off with, we're being flexible, we're being responsive to the conditions on the ground, and safety is our most important thing. I mean, you see it. The big national professional leagues are also grappling with this. So as you can imagine, it's pretty tough. Now for facilities that are closed, again, for a more comprehensive list, I'll try not to bore you guys on this, but look at that website that has it, and that will be updated as we evaluate things. But right now, I think one of the big ones is playgrounds are closed. So if you have kids, I'm sure you already know this. Playgrounds are closed, dog runs are closed, skate parks are closed. I'm probably going to miss some things here. Basketball courts are closed, and we had to take the hoops down, actually, which was a painful thing for us to do. But it's something we felt it was the thing that could guarantee that we could maintain social distancing. Handball courts are closed, tennis courts are closed, golf courses are closed. Nature centers and a couple other amenities, bocce courts, volleyball courts are closed. And again, the rationale for us behind this was in the interest of safety. We're trying to maintain that. We're trying to enforce social distancing the best we can. And these were the measures that we felt were most appropriate. Another big one for Commodore Barry is the pools. Pools are closed at the moment. We've had trouble getting lifeguards trained. Part of the lifeguard training, that takes place, and normally I think we start this around February, and obviously we couldn't do this training with the virus happening. You have to be in close quarters. You have to be swimming. There are just kind of inherent risks for lifeguard training. So we're trying to get lifeguard training back, but I would say I'm not super optimistic that the pools are going to be open for the season. I know that the mayor said he's still looking into it, but there are just a lot of logistics in terms of hiring workers, getting them on board, and in addition to the lifeguards, there's a lot of our seasonal staff that works at the pools, as you guys might encounter during the summer. Similarly, on swimming, city beaches are open. However, swimming is not allowed at the moment. This is another lifeguard thing again. So we don't have lifeguards at the beach. So if you're not allowed to go swimming at the moment, or we ask that you don't go swimming, we're hoping that this can change as we get more lifeguards trained up and staffed at the beaches. But pools are open. Beaches are open for passive recreation, for walking, and I think across, I'm bringing up now, but across the board, we're trying to take actions that will limit the amount of team sports or activities where people, just because due to the nature of the recreation will come into contact with each other. So, something like soccer is something that we're seeing that people are, maybe playing a pickup game that we'd love to have that, prevent that if possible. So, it's another reason why we're keeping some of these facilities closed. All of our rec centers are closed at the moment. As a result, all the programming that goes along with rec centers is also closed. I will say that our rec staff has done amazing work trying to bring some of that programming online to Parks at Home. It's NYC Parks at Home. Maybe Christiane Doley, if you could look that up online, maybe share it in the chat, so that we could have that. Otherwise, I'll share it with you guys later. It's just, so there are activities just to keep kids occupied about drawing, about fitness, about, nature. There are virtual nature walks, virtual park tours, and other classes with park staff. And I think the last thing I'll say is that community gardens have been closed, but what we've been allowing through our Green Thumb program is for some people to, for kind of the minimal amount of maintenance to happen, in order to keep these gardens alive and well. So Green Thumb gardens are closed, but some maintenance can take place. The last thing I'll say, and then maybe I'll open up for questions if anyone has any, is we've entered phase 1. What amenities get opened in the phase 1 phase? We're taking our cues from City Hall. So, we initially thought it was going to be a little bit more. It's not, it is what it is. But as part of that phase 1, we're relaxing the restrictions on volunteering. So if you have groups of volunteers of 10 or less, and you'd like to volunteer, please, reach out to your OC, your outreach coordinator. I think we're looking to allow groups that regularly volunteer. So, Fort Greene Park, you can work with Dave Barker. I think he's starting some of these programs up as well. But for the most part, it's just very, very small, kind of self-sufficient volunteer groups are allowed to come back in the park. Additionally, I would say we're only allowing that to happen at parks that are open. So if there's a park near you, but the whole site is closed due to some amenities that might be in it, that's just going to be unfortunately not allowed until that amenity is allowed to be opened back up. With that, I think Barbara, I'll open up to questions if you want to moderate that.
Oh. Okay, first, committee members, any questions from committee members? Suzanne? You have to
Of questions. Sorry, it's my mute again. You can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. A couple of questions. I've seen on a couple of chats, and also I saw Brad Landers put out a communication on this about garbage in the parks.
Yeah.
And garbage is piling up more. Can you share sort of the dynamics behind that? And the suggestions that I've heard have been proactive, like people should take their own garbage out. So which exists in a lot of parks, around the country today. I was in a park in New Jersey yesterday and there were no garbage cans. It was, clearly bring your garbage out with you. So just what's sort of creating the dynamic, and then are there efforts to put signage up or otherwise to direct people to take the garbage out with them? Anything you can share on that? And then I have a second question after others have gone.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so garbage has been, I think garbage is a challenge we struggle with all the time, even with the most robust of budgets for seasonals. This year, our seasonal plan was cut significantly. So we're kind of operating with a skeleton group. So, about garbage, we don't put the garbage in the park. We just try to take it out. So anything that you guys can do to help with that, is huge for us. If you can take stuff out and not throw it out in the park, it might seem little, it might just be a coffee cup and a couple napkins, but over time, if everybody does it, it does add up. So, yeah, obviously, if you guys can, carry in, carry out, that helps us. We don't have any plan to do any signage about it at the moment. But, I think one thing we're grappling with is not having our full summer seasonal staff. And that hurt a lot, for this budget season.
Yeah. Is it a deliberate decision not to do signage, or it just hasn't been fully considered yet?
We have a large sign committee, so I think it gets vetted through our whole agency, and we want to avoid, we'll do one thing at Commodore Barry, but it'll be a different sign at another park, or a different, or the signs in Brooklyn are different from Manhattan, different from Staten Island. So we try to do it as a citywide thing, but there's no plan at the moment.
Okay. From me, at least from my perspective, I would have maybe we should use the word poster, that it doesn't have to go through the sign committee.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Speaking about signs, I've seen the Parks Department symbol on these signs. One of the best signs I've ever seen is "This is what 16 looks like." It's simple, it's direct, and gets the message across. So that I thought was terrific.
Yeah, you can thank Marty for that one. I think he just kind of hopped on it and did it before he asked permission. So, yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I think we've had a lot of success with that, and you've seen it replicated. I think Candace might have had a question, but I don't know if she disappeared.
Only visual.
I'm still here. I don't know if you can see me though, but I'm still here.
Okay.
There you go.
We
Okay.
can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, that's so weird. My camera's on. Let me see. Am I back? My camera?
Yeah, you're back. Great.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So I know that Suzanne's question was a little bit about the garbage, and you touched on not having a seasonal staff. But with all of like the protests and the march that are happening, a lot of them start or end in our district, like at Cannon Plaza or Fort Greene Park. So what is the Parks Department doing in terms of like, still making, I guess, the parks, I don't know if the word is usable, or after these protests, or like what is the staff doing? Like, are you hiring extra staff, or your current staffers doing overtime to make sure that the parks are still clean after everything happens? And like, how do you, I guess, ensure the safety of the workers like during these protests and march and things like that?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think with these protests, it's definitely been a challenge for park staff. Again, I think they've done an amazing job just being flexible and responding to the situations on the ground. As I mentioned before, we're not issuing any event permits at this time. And so most of the organizers, I think, are dealing directly with the police with respect to the trash and that just comes from any large gathering of people. We are just kind of we're just being cognizant of the event and trying to send our people back out once the event has cleared out. So like cabmen, once they go across the bridge or once they come down. So we're just trying to be as responsive as possible, make sure bathrooms are cleaned, and definitely trying to give the park the best of a clean as we can after these events. We've had a lot of issues with graffiti, and I'll also say, some is graffiti and some are, ad hoc monuments, and so we've instructed our staff to try to be as careful and cognizant as possible. I know there was something, I think, in Manhattan where, I think park staff kind of didn't read the room in terms of, what was kind of more of a temporary monument, almost you could think of it in the lines of, you see those like white ghost bikes around the city. So some of them, so we've instructed staff if they see something that has a little bit more care put into it, to just kind of check to make sure before they just remove it. That said, I think, if we just see, some graffiti tag or if it's vulgar, we're gonna do our best to remove that. But all of our staff have been coached to, just give it an extra look over before scrubbing it off.
Thank you.
All right. Suzanne, you had another question?
First of all, I wanted to just acknowledge, the pandemic has certainly shown us however important the parks are to the city. So specifically, Davey, with regards to Bridge Park 2, over in Dumbo. So that's a park that's been closed, quote unquote, because of the playground. So I just wanted to raise that to you, and I don't know if it has been raised to you specifically. So there's the pavement area, and then there's the playground. There appears to be a gate between the two that could be changed so that the pavement area could be open for people as another place for people to use. For example, my kids and everyone else in the world who now have bikes who didn't before, or everyone else in the city, it would provide another place where bike riding could happen or whatever the activity might be. Are you aware of that? And is there the opportunity for the pavement area to be opened?
Yeah, I think we've had this issue at a number of sites. I mean, I think if you go into District 6, we've had requests for Carroll Park and Washington Park. Obviously, if you've ever been down there, you know how jammed those places are in the summer. And also we've had a number of sites in Williamsburg and Greenpoint that kind of also fit that mold. But unfortunately, I think we are just keeping the whole site locked off at the moment. We don't have any plan at the moment to open up the large pavement area. But I wish I had a better answer for you, but at the moment, there's no plan.
I mean, I'm trying to envision Carroll Park because I have been there.
Yeah.
And it is jammed. But I don't know. Has anyone with authority been on a site visit of Bridge Park 2? Because it appears like there's a very tall, serious metal gate that could separate the two. So there wouldn't seem to be a reason why it could. I just wonder if it's actually been closely looked at or if it was just sort of, part of a list, especially since that park is going to be renovated. Maybe it wasn't carefully considered. But as we all know, every space matters right now.
I can ask our staff to look into it and I can try to get you a better answer after the call.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so we can definitely look into it. I think I have to check what the barrier is between the playground and the, I'm going to call it multi-purpose play area. MPPA is the technical term for it. Yeah, so I can check and look into that to see, you know, what the rationale behind closing that.
Understand you guys have had a lot going on, so it may just not gotten an extra piece of attention.
Yep.
Thank you.
Are there any questions about the virus? Oh, you have a question, sorry.
Hi, Davey. I wanted to thank you that we appreciate and applaud the fact that the Parks Department, in conjunction with DOT, has not removed the temporary monument at South Oxford and Fort Greene Park, which is good. I wanted to ask if the last 3 weekends I have the parks being utilized so much. Do we plan? Is there any plan to put social distancing markers in any of the areas where people are gathering? I noticed, in Seattle they had done something where they had mowed circles into the lawn. There's obviously the huge issue with Domino Park, not in our district, but that they had introduced the social distancing circles. Could it be something as simple as like one of the markers that you put on top of a sprinkler or something that sort of get folks separated?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've thought about it. We're definitely impressed by the things that they've done at Domino. I think there's a bit of an enforcement issue with respect to like mowing circles in it. I don't think we're just the number of people that we have available to mow things. I don't think it's feasible for them to do anything but the quickest, shortest route. As far as social distancing goes, we don't have any other plans to roll out at the moment. If you have suggestions, we're open to them and we can listen to them. But nothing's planned for at the moment. I think, did you bring up sprinklers as well?
I just thought, those little tiny neon flags that you put down to mark a sprinkler so that the mower doesn't hit it.
Oh,
if you could space those 10 feet apart and tell people that that's where they can sort of set up their little picnic, it might just, without enforcement, it might just encourage folks to cluster and separate.
Yeah, we haven't really planned anything like that at the moment. So yeah, we can, if you have suggestions, I can bring that back.
Okay. Anyone who's not a committee member, before I ask if anyone who's not a committee member wants to ask a question, I just want to acknowledge that Carol Ann Church is with us. And Carol Ann, I think I've been meaning to say hello to you recently, to thank you personally, and now I can do it publicly for all you've done for the Parks Committee while I've been the chair, and how much I appreciate it. And I did mention you at the beginning of the program, but I don't think you had joined at that point. So, but thank you for being here and for all you've done. So, thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. This is Lenny Levington. My camera's probably still not working.
Sure.
Davey, you were talking about the beaches and pools and lifeguards. I was a lifeguard when I was young enough to be a lifeguard at the beaches, and almost all the lifeguards do go in to make rescues every year. Almost all of them. And they will obviously be in direct contact with whoever they're pulling out, whoever they may have to give CPR to, etc. And as much as I love swimming in the beach, I really think that it would be putting the lifeguards in harm's way while this disease is out there. That's just my comment. I don't think for their safety that the beaches should be open to swimmers with lifeguards on duty.
I I want to be mindful of the time. So at this point, Davey, I think if you want to go on, and then we'll save any other questions till you're finished.
Yeah. Okay. Just looking, how do I share my screen so I could just show you guys the PowerPoint?
Hi, Davey, it's Taya. If
Hey.
you look on the upper left corner of the Webex window, you should see
Yep.
the words File, Edit, Share. Click on Share
Yep.
and then select Share Content.
It's grayed out actually. I can only click share my meeting window.
Ooh.
Should I try that?
Try now.
I'm not getting it.
That might be a universal access issue that we have on all of our meetings then.
Okay. Is there any way I could share my? That's right. That's the only way I could share my screen, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. So I mean, I'm happy just to talk through it. I mean, and I can send out the presentation, and we could, and you guys can look at the details later.
Caroline
Davey.
just mentioned to touch the third button on the bottom.
If you move your cursor over the screen, there's a box with an arrow pointing up.
Yeah, it's grayed out on my computer though.
Oh, okay.
Let me.
That's odd because you actually have presenter privileges, which should
It might be my laptop. I'm not sure I gave it permissions to.
Does someone
Might
else,
not.
if someone else in your office on the call has access to the file and is able to share content, maybe they could run the visual while you provide audio.
Well, you know what? Let me. I can try to email it to you guys right now.
Sure
How about
thing.
that?
Yep.
So if you guys could just bear with us for a second. Sorry about that. I'm going to send it to the BK02 email address.
Yeah.
Is that the right one?
I'll actually send you mine directly. 1 second.
Okay, send me an email and I'll just respond to you. Sorry, guys. Thank you for bearing with me.
Sure.
We're well ahead of schedule. It's fine.
I've learned when you close the chat box, you have to be careful that you close the chat box and not get yourself off the call. Because the two X's are near each other.
Rob, I sent it to you as well. So if you can. Did you? Sorry, everybody. Taya, let me know if you got that. The
I
email.
have. Oh, ding ding, there it is. Okay, let's see.
So while Taya loads this up, I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer about the timelines on all of these projects. So during the shutdown, all construction was halted. So, you know, only a very, very small number of construction projects were able to go through. I think in Brooklyn, I think we had 30 active construction sites throughout the borough. I think only maybe 1 or 2 were allowed to proceed. I'll check that number, but you know, those only like 1 or 2 were deemed essential projects. So as a result, a lot of our timelines for those jobs that are in construction is quite delayed. You know, I think only this week are we seeing construction sites getting back to business. And I think, you know, I think one conception that people have is that, you know, you just need to get the guys to the site and they just start putting things together. It's actually a pretty complicated supply chain that they have to go through. Perfect. I can see it. So there's quite a complicated supply chain that goes into parks. You know, all the playground is built by one manufacturer somewhere. The safety surface is from a different manufacturer, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of this delicate, orchestrated dance that has to take place in order for construction sites to go back to working. So, you know, those sites that were scheduled, and then that's just for sites that, you know, we've had the budget approved and it was in construction. For those sites that have yet to start construction, I think the timeline is even more delayed. And we're looking at, you know, we're looking at projects that were supposed to start in the spring, getting pushed back to late summer or even into the fall, if not sometime in 2021. Because, you know, some of these projects made it through the procurement cycle to the point where they were bid out and we had a contractor on board ready to go. Some projects never even made it to that point. And so the Office of Management and Budget is kind of telling us to slow down a little bit and to hold back from releasing new bids until they can kind of inventory how much damage I think the lack of revenue for the city is going to impose on people. That's a little bit rambly. Does anyone have any questions on that before I begin? All right. Anna, do you want to advance for the next slide? All right. So Betty Carter Park, this was finished last summer. We had a great event in the park. I know we've had a lot of issues with trash collection, which was a tough one for us to work out when the park first opened. So we've tried our best to get a handle on it. But obviously there are still concerns about that, and we're working through it. But it doesn't help when you have a whole high school that just kind of ends up in the park on their breaks and on their lunch breaks and dumps all sorts of garbage. So we've been trying to work it out with different community partners, including the Fulton Avenue bid. So we're hoping that, you know, we can figure out how this park, you know, operates a little bit more consistently in the future. We also got all the lighting to work in the park. That was a bit of a struggle with DOT and Con Edison, but I think everything should be up and running at the moment. Next. So Cabin Plaza, so this is the project you can see on the side of the building at Cabin Plaza for the elevator. This is the idea to make it ADA accessible. You can see at the bottom of this chart, construction began 2020. So it did begin in the spring, actually. Whether it will complete next spring, I think is up for grabs. What a month delay to adjust. So we hope that they'll be back up and running again. But yeah, I would say I would take that spring 2020 with a grain of salt. Next. It's not a great picture for this project, but these are the bathrooms that are in the basement of this building. They're kind of the only game in town with respect to bathrooms. So, the idea is to bring these up to code to make them accessible. They're kind of, a relic of the 40s when this building was built. So, just kind of modernizing it. That's all that this project is. We were hoping that it would start in the spring. But, we will determine where it, we can give you updates, once construction starts clicking along a little bit more. Next. Continuing on the bathroom theme, this is on the east side of Cabin Plaza. So just to the left, if you're looking at this building, to the left is the synthetic turf lawn in front of Cabin Plaza. We brought this to the community board I think maybe last year. We're hoping that it can start this fall, but again, I would say probably more realistic is next spring. But we'll see what happens. How the procurement gods look upon this project. Next. So this is the Cabin Plaza. This is the lawn. So there's a lot of work happening at Cabin Plaza and the War Memorial. This is a project to renovate the lawn. You guys might have seen that the art installation, that handball wall, was recently removed. That was planned. That was just a temporary installation through, I think, the Public Art Fund. But anyways, this is a project to update the lighting, to redo the paving. I don't think the paving has ever been redone in its lifespan. So it's, a lot of the pavement, the drainage lines underneath are broken and cracked. So this is going to be redoing that. It's going to be fixing some of the sinking and in some of the pavement and make it a little bit easier for our operations to get around and hopefully clear up some of the pedestrian vehicle conflicts with this design. Next. Bridge Park 2. So Bridge Park 2 is supposed to start this spring. Unfortunately, it looks like it will probably be pushed back. We don't have a date for it yet, but we can let you guys know whenever we get that. Next. Fort Greene. This is obviously, I think you guys are all familiar with this project. I think this one is, I don't know if this is I think this one, yes, this is part of the Parks Without Borders package. Right now, I think this one and probably the next slide are both on hold for the moment. As I think the people in the Parks Committee are aware, there's a lot of, this project has had a lot of dialogue about it. Right now, it's being litigated in court. So, the Parks Department will follow whatever the courts, we're taking our cues from the court. So that's where this project is. There's no real update on it at the moment. Next. Yeah, same thing with this one. This is kind of the main plaza area. At the bottom, you can see the steps. The steps are shown at the bottom right of that image, and then that's the plaza heading up to Myrtle. Next. Commodore Barry. So this project is still in design. The design has been delayed a little bit due to some things we found in the design. We're still figuring out what the right solution for it is. There might be a little bit of a budget shortfall, but I think it's something we feel we can resolve without slowing down the project too much. But that's all that we have on this one for now. Next. So this is kind of in Commodore Barry, that northern phase, that big asphalt multi-purpose play area. You might hear me say MPPA. That's this area and the playground. That we're currently working with the state and the downtown and other partners in downtown Brooklyn for something called the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, I believe the acronym is. But anyways, we're looking for the state to fund some of this project. The council member has put other money into this project at the moment, but keep in mind it's a $12 million price tag to redo that whole section. This is only 3.2 million, so at the moment it's not really going to do. It's not going to do much. We're looking for whether we can redo some pavement and see how far we can get with 3.2. Otherwise, we're trying to figure out ways we can scheme about ways to get this playground redone. Next. This is the building in Commodore Barry. We have designs to bring this up to code and to make it more accessible. It is going to be a men's and women's room. However, I just want to say, I know that last time when we talked about the other comfort station, this building will be whatever gender you feel most comfortable using, you can use. The main goal of this project is to rework the interior of this building so that we maximize the space for users, while also getting enough for the staff that maintain the site. They're not going to be locker rooms or anything for the field for the leagues. Sorry to anybody on the call that was looking for that, but this is just kind of getting it up to code and allowing everybody to use this building. Next. Washington Hall Park, so just across the street from Commodore Barry. This is a simple basketball court reconstruction. It's in the procurement phase. I think this one is probably further back in the procurement queue. So, depending on how OMB feels about registering new projects at this time, I would say that, this project is probably more likely to begin in 2021. And then, obviously a year to complete after whatever date it starts from. Next. I think that might be it.
Yep, that's the last slide I have, Davey.
That's the last slide. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? That's a lot of information I just threw at you guys.
But not unexpected. The delay in the timeline. So
yeah.
We'll start here with committee members, and then we'll give everybody a chance to ask questions. So right now, I can't see people raising their hands. So.
Suzanne, you're muted.
Hi.
Yeah.
Did we take down the?
We may need to reference it, Barbara.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. Davey, Bridge Park 2. So what I heard in general was, and tell me if I misheard, that obviously there are delays until the city can figure out the budget impacts from COVID and how that sort of floats down to park. But Bridge Park 2, given that the funding is in place from the Jehovah's Witnesses, is that on a different, does that create a different circumstance? I think the procurement was meant to be done around now. I don't know just if in general there's impacts to the procurement department or process, but In terms of actually funding the construction, my understanding is the budget is not coming from the city, so perhaps this one can be on a different, isn't impacted by COVID
Yeah.
schedules.
I think that's true, but I think it's in the city budget at the moment. So I think OMB has held off doing anything. Whether they relax that in the next couple months or when we get it, when phase one gets more established and we're entering phase two, everything's kind of up in the air at the moment. So I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking in terms of releasing projects. Yeah, but I mean, we would have started this spring. I don't know if we had I don't know how far along in the procurement cycle it got. I think, Chris Yandoli, if you can share a link to the capital tracker, just so people can reference that too.
Yeah.
I think,
There was a bit of a,
Yeah.
bit of a take two on procurement, as I recall. I don't remember the specifics. One of my colleagues probably
I don't know.
would.
If they might have had to throw out the first bidder, or maybe they didn't get good bids.
It was something like that.
Yeah, I would say that one thing, if from lessons that we learned from the recession in 08, where that actually bid prices came down because a lot of private sector work stopped. So, if there's any silver lining of this, maybe that could be it. But I wouldn't. We'll see how. I think it's we're going to just wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
For those of you who've never been on the Capital Tracker website, Chris Yandel just shared it. It's a good resource to see how far along projects are moving.
Barbara,
Carolyn.
I had a comment. I noticed that you mentioned that the comfort stations in Cadman Park would be for whoever wanted to use it, not necessarily by gender. And we couldn't seem to get that before. And I was wondering what the change was. I mean, I know that's more of a programmatic thing too, that part of it, but.
Yep. I apologize if I misspoke there. There's still going to be a men's and a women's side. It will be labeled as such. I think it's not on the plan. However, we don't have bathroom police where, however you identify, you're free to use that bathroom. And it is a multi-stalled bathroom. So, by state law, you can use whichever stall or side you identify with.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a sign to that effect.
Yeah.
Any other committee members have questions? All right. Anyone who's not a committee member want to ask a question at this point?
Yeah, hi, I had a question if you can hear me.
No, it's Lenny.
No, that's not me.
No. Oh, that's not.
This is Kevin. I'm with the Brooklyn paper.
Sure.
Yeah, hi, Davey. You mentioned with the Commodore Barry Park there was some design issue. Could you say what that is or what that was?
We've done some design testing and we're trying to find what's the condition of the soil, whether we can build on it and whether we can make it. I think there was desire from the community to make it natural turf. So we're just trying to figure out what's in the soil and if it's good enough where we can build what we originally intended.
Anything else?
Lloyd, did you have a question?
Yes, how you doing? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I did hear you say that there won't be any locker rooms or anything in particular for sports teams. at the present time, I have 3 containers in the park that I maintain and I make sure they're graffiti free and keep them very clean. My question is, will there be a location? I did speak to Commissioner, but is there a location in these plans for me to have that same facility, you know, even if it's a mobile facility inside the park in the design?
I believe so. I believe so. I don't see why there would be any
Excuse me one
issue.
second. Suzanne, I think you need to mute. Okay, thanks.
Lloyd, I don't think there would be any reason that we would boot those containers out of the park. We might ask them to be removed temporarily during construction, but I think that the new design calls for this. Chris and I can follow up with you and just to confirm as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from non-committee members? All right, so I think at this point we can take down this display, and now that we have it, I assume we can share it among the committee. Davey, you'd be okay with that?
Yeah, among the committee would be fine. Yeah.
All right, great. And
I would say, Barbara, I would just say that, you know, we're listing a lot of dates there, and a lot of those dates are going to change. So, you know, all of that, just take it with a grain of salt that it's going to be, those dates are probably not going to be accurate in a couple of months from now.
we've all been affected by that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and give our regards to Marty. We know how busy everyone is, and the parks have been a wonderful respite during this time. It's so great to be able to go out and enjoy walking through a park.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate.
Well, thank you guys for being advocates. I think, you know, we realize that, you know, in the absence of music venues and bars and all the other activities that make New York City great, you know, parks are the only game in town. So thank you guys for sticking with this, with us through this. You know, in any way that you guys can keep advocating, you know, we appreciate it. You know, whether it's for more funding in capital or expense money, you know, I'd also say, you know, like going into the summer, you know, our staffing numbers have been hit pretty badly. So what that's going to mean is it's going to mean more garbage in parks. It's going to mean more weeds in gardens, more, you know, the grass is going to get longer because it's going to be less frequently mowed. You know, these are the types of things that how I think the budget cuts will start manifesting themselves in your neighborhoods. So just be mindful of that. And obviously we're doing the best that we can. If there's any way we can be more responsive, just let me know and we can work with you guys on trying to do that.
Please reach out to us if there's anything the committee can do to help you.
Okay, I will.
So thank you. As always, you're welcome to stay now that we go look at the needs statement, or if you need to leave, we understand that. So at this point, Taya, can we take this down?
Barbara, I am sorry to report that since Davey first stopped speaking, we've all been trying to get rid of this visual.
Oh no!
And it does not seem to be working. However, the recording is still going and we can still see you talking. So we will continue to try to close this window somehow.
Okay. Let's see. I can't see myself, but there we go. Thank you. And you know, now that I realize we should have also put up here the statement of community district needs, and that would make it easy to go through it as we do that. But this is the part of the meeting where we're going to turn and look at the annual update on, rather the look at the statement of community needs. So I hope people have looked at it, and I'm open to listen to people who want to make changes, or do we need to remove anything, or I have something I'd like to add when we get to it. So is there anyone who wants to start that discussion?
Dwight,
Dwight, okay, I can't see you, but go ahead, Dwight.
in the other section, page 23, the question first for,
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay. Okay. Talking about the other section. The question for Rob is why is this and all the others called other? I don't quite understand that as a section head. Rob? So, well, then going on in that paragraph, just a couple of the draft points. The fifth line from the bottom of that paragraph that starts with lists of its facilities. At the end of that line,
I'm sorry, are you talking about the paragraph on needs for parks?
I'm talking, no, under other.
You're still under other, okay.
It's the fourth line from the bottom under other.
All right.
It's the line that starts with list of its facilities and ends with start B, and that should be start by, I think.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, and then 2 lines down, which start with Commodore Barry, end with member. Should that be members? The borough president and council members to
You're
show.
right.
Okay, and then I wonder in that second line from the bottom where it's the full sentence that starts with the result is often deferred maintenance. Do we want to make it long deferred maintenance since so much of this takes so long? I don't know if the emphasis is necessary, but that's a question.
All right. Anything else, Dwight?
And in the needs for parks section, 3 lines down from the top, starting with this, we talk about the southern portion of Clinton Hill in this section. On page 25, we talk about the eastern portion. Which is it? That has scared. There's no dispute about Borum Hill. Is it the southern part of Clinton Hill or the eastern part of Clinton Hill? Just to conform whatever side this on with page 25 in one of the asks. See where I'm going? Third line from.
Which do you think it is? Should be.
Oh, I don't know. I don't live in Fort Greene.
Oh, okay.
As a Hiller.
Borum Hill is south and west
Note that
of Clinton Hill.
Pardon me?
Borum Hill is south and west of Clinton Hill.
That's not but we're not defining it that way. It's the next group. It's
Clinton Hill.
Clinton Hill.
Thank you.
It's either the southern portion of Clinton Hill, as stated on page 23 in the needs for parks section, or it's the portion of eastern Hill, which
Carol Ann seemed to have a
in priority 13. So that's the question.
Carol Ann said it's the eastern extreme on the southern edge.
How do we conform one of the two? We only use one word, eastern or southern, in each of the descriptions. Unless we want to add Carol Ann's language. That'll make it clearer. But just the way it's written here is that we've said that it's the eastern part of Clinton Hill on page 25 and the southern part on page 20.
Well, it sounds to me
I'm doing
like
one.
southern would be the more if we're just choosing one word, southern would be more appropriate.
Carol Ann? Well, how about if we just,
Carolyn, you're muted.
okay, so, or we'll just again, highlight that for resolution and then we can move on.
It's literally on the end of the district on the eastern edge, and it is the southern edge as well. So
How about the southeast?
that would be
Portion.
appropriate.
Southeast portion, how's that?
Okay, well, that's fine. I was that up. Okay.
That seems accurate, southeast, okay. Anything else, Dwight?
Then, yeah, in this section, then on the page 24, the heading of needs for community boards, and is it needs for community board space instance? Talking about, is it for new office space? And it's not, this is all related to community board too, so it's community board in any event. And the question is, it needs for community board office space, again, for clarity purposes.
Okay. In other words, I've read that section, but I don't have it in front of me. You're saying that that whole section really just deals
Right.
with the office.
The section called needs for community boards references only the need for office space in community board 2. So the heading I'm suggesting ought to be need for community board office, community board 2 office space, or community board space.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
So tackling the last question and the first question, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that these headings, there are specific sort of buckets, if you will, where you can put in content, either narrative or budget priorities. And those are predetermined for us by the system itself. So need for is a heading that we have no control over. Similarly, going back to your first question, Dwight, you said why does it say other at the top? Because, and I'm sorry, I need to bring this back. There are different subheadings that could be put as the most important issue. Your request or the community board's request doesn't fit into any of those specific titled buckets. And so your request is other, the bucket that's left over.
Understood.
Great.
I got it. On both instances.
Hi everyone, this is Davey. I just want to say thank you. I think we're gonna take off. So if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to respond the best we can.
We really appreciate that.
Thanks, David.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay safe.
You as well.
So Rob, is the issue of the location of the district office still a matter of still pending, or is it that we're just going to stay where we are?
Well, Lenny Singletary and Len Jordan met with a deputy commissioner from DCAS, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services is the city's real estate agent, if you will. And it was very generous of them to schedule a meeting with someone at the deputy commissioner level. She was pretty frank. I think Lenny and Len heard her comments a little more optimistically than I did.
Oh.
One of the big takeaways is that whenever DCAS is looking for space in downtown Brooklyn for any city agency, they find cost a real barrier that they have trouble surmounting. They think that that will be the case here as well. The lease on 350 J Street is up in a few years, and there may be a lot of moving around at that time, with potentially Community Board 2 going to another location then, but that's a few years away.
All right, so this is still on the board then.
Yep.
Thank you. Dwight, did you have something else? I think you said no. Does anyone else have something?
I do. This is Lenny Levington again.
Sure.
On page 25, there's the second item, creating a grading and drainage plan to address erosion problems in Fort Greene Park. The other day when I took that walk that I told you about, Barbara,
Right.
it was just after maybe a 15, 20-minute rain. Thunderstorm, it wasn't even thunder. And I walked up from the stairs at St. Edward's Place, St. Edward's Street, up and past the hospital on that path. That path is badly broken up, and it was puddled. There were countless numbers of puddles. No other path had any puddling problem. So there's a real need for leveling and repaving there. Also, St. Edward Street itself, I learned by one of the head gardener actually in the park, Max Webb, tells me that the street, the sidewalk in front of what looks like in front of the park is really controlled by the park. And that street is very badly broken up. And it's a hazard to kids, people pushing baby carriages. There's a rehab and old age home directly across the street over there. So it's obviously not safe for those people. And I think that should be also on this priorities list.
Could we add it to this, or would it have to be a separate?
Probably added to it. I mean, to write it up, probably.
Actually, asking Rob.
I didn't hear you clearly.
I think we should check what's already included in other scopes of work. There are three phases of perimeter and pathway and drainage work. The first phase is completed. The other two, as Davey politically put it, what was his euphemism? There's been a lot of community discourse. That was a euphemism for there's an ongoing lawsuit.
Yeah.
That is holding up work that has been funded and designed. But he showed that one of the slides showed the work that's included, and check first to see whether an existing scope of work includes any of the areas that Lenny is talking about. The comment that the sidewalks immediately adjacent to a park are the Parks Department's responsibility is a correct statement.
Could you repeat that? It is what?
A correct statement.
Okay, thank you. Is there any way of expediting that court action? Yeah, it's a question.
In this climate, Absolutely not.
True in this climate.
No.
In any other climate, though, because this has been going on for a while, could there have been, or in the future,
The way
could
to
there be a way?
expedite a lawsuit is to settle it. So if you know of a way to settle it, that would expedite it.
Uh,
Okay.
I can't answer that one too
Okay.
much.
So, but if while we're on page 25, I thought we had taken off refurbish the tennis courts in Fort Greene.
We had.
Okay.
Agreed.
So it's still here.
Yes, we should make sure that comes off. And can I just clarify for the minutes, Lenny, you're just affirming that the drainage issue should stay on the list
It should, definitely.
as is. Okay.
All right. Anything else, Lenny?
Not that I can think of right now, no.
Okay. Does anyone else have items to address?
I have one.
Sure.
Well, I had two. One was removing the tennis courts. So we're aligned on that.
I had two also, and one was removing the tennis court.
Okay. You may have my other one as well. Golconda Skate Park.
Yes, that's my other one.
So I think I need a little guidance in terms of capital versus expense. There's a drainage issue there as well. I don't even know if that's been assessed as to whether.
I thought we should concentrate on the need to winterize the bathrooms. That sounds to me like a big ticket item. That would be a capital expense.
Yeah, that's good, Barbara. That's good. I'm with you on that.
Okay, so that's as the person taking the minutes, you can put in there, we want to add upgrade of Golconda Skateport Park to winterize the bathrooms there.
Is
Park is
Golconda currently a budget priority?
No, we can't add it?
Oh,
No, you can. I'm just asking.
Right,
yeah,
it's not.
no.
It's not.
The bathrooms in the park or at the playground?
There are bathrooms in that skate park, yes, but they're not they're not really for winter time, and the park is, except obviously now the park is closed, but otherwise it's used year round.
Yeah.
So it would
The
make
bathrooms
sense.
are closed. They're closed in the winter because they're not winterized.
Right. So, do we have to discuss where that would be placed on the list? What number?
Well, the rankings are done communally by all the board members,
Oh, okay.
or at least when the process works right, it's done by vote of all board members. Last year, we just carried over the rankings from the previous year because so few board members responded.
You know, we could do, in a sense, we could, when we take out the Fort Greene Park, we could put this one in its stead.
It's not that simple.
Okay.
It's more democratic. How about that?
All right. Okay. All right. Anything else, Suzanne?
I don't. There was a resurfacing issue in that park, Barbara. Remember, but I don't know that that hits this list.
I mean,
There
there
was
like
that
speed bumps. You know.
Yeah, I think they're probably not. I think that's the one for this list, as you said.
Because I think
I'm good.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else have some comments about this needs list? All right. Okay.
Can I add an observation?
Sure.
And I don't want people to overreact to this, but in my previous job, I allocated about $8.5 million worth of capital funds for parks every year. And I have lived through what's known as the program to eliminate the gap, PEG. Davey said they don't know what's going to happen with the projects that he gave us an update on. He said, obviously dates are going to get moved into the future, but there is a very real chance that some projects will just disappear entirely as the entire capital budget is cut to reduce debt load.
Right. I do have one other thing on page 28, 3 of 22, which talks about Commodore Barry Park. I think it would be, it talks about the field, but I think it would be, especially after what we heard earlier tonight, be good to add a sentence that said something along the lines of, while funding has been provided for the athletic field, funds are needed to upgrade and refurbish other areas of the park. Well, I guess it does sort of say, you know what, it does, the first sentence really does address it, obtain additional funds. So I don't think we have to add, I hope it's clear that we don't want funding just for the field, which tonight was the first time we heard that they may not have sufficient funding for the field.
And that's not what I heard, but I will say that my attention has been divided between the meeting itself and sort of the technology of the meeting.
Right.
But I think that the area where funding is perhaps a little weak is the playground area north of the central walkway.
Right.
But the playing fields themselves, I believe those are fully funded.
Well, that's not what I heard tonight. I don't know what anyone else.
I could very much be wrong.
Because I was surprised to hear it because I thought it was fully funded. But maybe if they identify this problem and it is a problem, then maybe they will need more funding. I don't know. All right. So I don't think we have to add that sentence. Anybody else have anything?
I would just, Rob, just in response to what you noted about, the budgets obviously being impacted coming out of COVID. I mean, that makes total sense. I think it's important to have items on the list. It may take longer and more years for the items to get attended to, but
that's why I said please don't overreact.
Yeah, no, I'm not overreacting. It feels to me like Commodore Barry, part of why it eventually got done. I'm sure there were other reasons, but part of why was because it was on this list for a really long time, making its way up. We'll have to.
We also made a number of statements, and I think this is the other statement that Dwight pointed out earlier. When you have projects of this size, you really need to convince whoever is mayor that they need to put money behind it because, smaller projects, the borough president, the local council member, they can each chip in, get it done. But when you're talking about a project that's 10, 15, $20 million in size, you have to have the mayor on the account.
I do on page 29, 13 of 22 towards the bottom, we also need to correct there the southeastern Clinton Hill. It's repeated. Okay. Anyone else have any comments? I hope if you haven't had a chance to look at this, you will and get back to us as quickly as possible with anything else you might have.
I'd like to say one other thing. I noticed a lot of, this is Lenny Levinton again. I noticed a lot of comments, a lot of categories throughout this list had to do with rat infestation problems.
Yes.
Not necessarily in the parks, I noticed, but also in the commercial areas. And when we discussed it a while ago, and I mentioned having those galvanized stainless steel cans.
Right. I remember that.
They're very cheap. I mean, that's the best word to use, economical. They're cheap. They're $24 or $25 each for a $31 gallon can. And if it could be just suggested or recommended, to businesses up and down the streets in the commercial areas, or any areas that may fall into public domain to put these cans out there. It's a simple solution. To urge these people to check into, it's called Behrens, Behrens is the company. I don't work for them. I don't get any money for them. It's just a good product that Dave Barker put in his park and is working out very well.
I'm
So
glad to hear that.
if these business people can be urged to look into it, it's for their own good as well as everybody else. Very obviously, it could go a long way to solving this problem. So that's a comment I have, because I see it in many of these lines: rat infestation problems here, rat infestation problems in other places. I mean, that's my 2 cents on this. So
Thanks, Lenny. I'm glad it's working out in the park. That's great news. All right, we're going to turn to, again, I can't see who's still on, well, not by picture. I can't see who's still on here. We turn to community forum. We're right on track at the moment. I hope we stay that way to finish up by 8 o'clock. But community forum, does anyone who's not a committee member have something they want to share? And just speak up if you do. That brings us to the minutes. The first thing I noticed about the minutes, they refer to 2010 instead of 2020, but I think that may have been changed already. And I had a number of sort of typo things. Nothing that's substantive. Does anybody have any comments about the minutes? Candace?
Yeah, it looks like where it says committee members present, committee has 3 T's in it
Oh, okay.
instead of 2.
That is an incredible catch.
Oh, well, thank you, Barbara.
Kudos for that. I'm someone who's been made fun of for using a ruler to read through documents, so, and I certainly didn't see that.
I mean, I do the same thing, so I understand. I just had to hover my mouse over the word committee. I'm like, that looks like 3 T's. So yeah,
They make fun of me, so for that. And then for Christmas, I gave these 4 people I work with rulers as a Christmas present. So, anybody else? All right, so I'm going to assume that the minutes, we're going to take out the extra T and change them to 2020. And as I said, I will give the board a couple of similar little typos, nothing severe, and we can assume that the minutes are accepted. In terms of the chairperson's report, I think my report really was to welcome everyone and tell you how delighted I was that we're having a meeting. We haven't met since March. Or no, I think it's February. We haven't met. That was one of the first things that got canceled, was our March meeting. And I also talked about 2 liaisons who are on the call. And while Rob is up in the corner there, I'll also thank him for everything he's done during this crisis. So I really appreciate it. Is there any other business? I think then we've gotten through here with a few little glitches. Andrew, did you make it onto the call? I know you were here at least part of the time, but we'll have to work on that with Andrew. So I'm delighted to see everybody, even if it's this way rather than in person. I'd love to think that back in September, I mean, going forward to September, that we'll be meeting in person, but there are no guarantees at the moment. As we heard Davey say, you have to be flexible and things change by the day. So we may be doing it this way again. But what you could do is start thinking about topics for the fall. We're always looking for new topics. And I think Suzanne and I have an idea of at least one topic. Has to do with the skateboarding park. Have them come in and talk to us. Hopefully that will happen. And so I, at this point, will entertain a motion to adjourn. Candace is shaking her head. I assume she's, do we have a second? Oh, Carolyn. Okay, with that, and again, Taya, I want to thank you for pulling this off and putting up the graphics. That was wonderful. And I hope everyone stays safe and take care.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.